Tonight, more doubt cast over another Port Augusta wind farm and what the federal election announcement means for the seat of Grey.
From our 7 Spencer Golf Studios, your nightly news with Casey Treelaw begins now.
Good evening. The future of another renewable energy project in Port Augusta is under a cloud after one of the major suppliers for the Lincoln Gap wind farm announced it would enter into self-liquidation this week. Garth Burley has the story.
Nexus Energy's Lincoln Gap wind farm outside of Port Augusta is projected to consist of nearly 60 wind turbines to generate power. But Senvion, the German company supplying the key infrastructure, this week filed for insolvency proceedings, casting doubt over the future of the project. A German court on Tuesday approved the application, with the company saying in a statement that business operations shall be continued and that the goal of full recovery remains. It's despite the company reportedly owing more than $1.1 billion in debt globally. In December last year, Senvion announced it could proceed with construction to stage 2 of the Port Augusta project, adding an extra 24 turbines. A spokesperson for Nexus Energy told 7 Spencer Golf News that it was in discussions with its project team and major stakeholders to ensure minimal change to its progress. However, Senvion did not respond to our request for an interview.
The future of Port Lincoln's Leisure Centre redevelopment remains uncertain today after it was announced yesterday afternoon the construction company in charge of the project, Unique Urban Built, went into liquidation. Nathan Regter has more.
Well, unfortunately, there's still uncertainty for workers today as to when they'll be able to get back to the job. It follows on from yesterday's shock announcement that Adelaide-based construction company managing Port Lincoln's $9.4 million leisure centre had gone into administration. Local workers being informed yesterday through an email, a surprise for all involved, including the City Council, which awarded the project to Unique Urban Built late last year.
Council was not aware or had no forewarning that this process was going to occur, and like many other people in the community, we found out via subcontractors. The
council is currently in talks with the appointed administrator, hoping to find a solution as soon as possible. If an agreement can't be reached, the council says it'll reappoint a principal contractor to take over from UUB.
Which means there will be more extensive delays. That's not our preferred outcome.
The council says it's not held up any payment with a contractor. The appointed administrator said in a statement yesterday that we're at a very early stage in this process, but I'm hopeful that I will be able to work with the council to bring the Leisure Centre Stadium expansion project to completion. Now, council says it's unsure how long the construction site will remain closed for. A formal announcement and update is expected next week.
Prime Minister Scott Morrison has announced May 18 as the date for the federal election, opening up the race for the seat of Grey. The electorate is set to be in the spotlight following a marginal win for Liberal whip Rowan Ramsey in the 2016 election.
The wait is over and Australia is now bracing for another federal election.
It's a choice between a government that I lead and the alternative of a Labor government led by Bill Shorten.
The electorate of Grey is flying under the radar as one of the state's most marginal seats. In 2016, Andrea Broadfoot of the Centre Alliance missed out on the seat by a fraction of the vote. This year, she hopes to go the extra yard.
We've actually got a 1.8% margin in Grey, and what that allows is a lot more attention and funding to flow to the seat.
It won't be an easy fight, with Liberal whip Rowan Ramsey serving as a member for Grey since 2007. He is committed to continue the fight for better infrastructure and mental health.
You know, I feel as though our government has actually been very focused on those things, and I've been very pleased with the part I've been able to take in delivering that.
Labor's Karen Bolton will again put in a bid, hoping to gain votes through a strong focus on healthcare, education and securing jobs in primary industry.
A Fair Go action plan that we've been developing over the last 6 years, and that's around focusing on schools and hospitals and family budgets.
Dominic Beaton, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Yorke Peninsula residents are being urged to remain vigilant following the announcement of an extension of the fire danger season until April 30. Drought and extreme heat have left the region unseasonably dry, heightening the potential risk for fires. SA Police is also urging residents to report any suspicious arsonist activities during this period to 131 444. More cancer units for regional South Australia. That's the plan the state government is committing to with a $6.9 million expansion for cancer support. The sites include Port Lincoln, Victor Harbour and the Riverland. It'll promote medium complexity cancer units for the areas, doubling the current amount across the state. The expansion will take place over the next 4 years, providing regional residents with better access to cancer treatment. An independent report into the mass fish deaths that occurred at Menindee earlier this year has made a number of recommendations for policymakers. In total, 27 recommendations have been listed.
A long list of advice following an extensive investigation.
What was concerning in that report was that they couldn't guarantee there were going to be no more fish kills.
The report named 3 immediate causes of the Menindee fish kills: low flows, poor water quality and a sudden change in temperature. But it did say there were other influencing factors, including water management and the Menindee Lakes operations.
I think it's important that the government acknowledge the fact that the management of the river and the basin has not been going well.
The federal government has accepted all 27 recommendations made in the report. Key items talked about was the protection of low flows in drier conditions and ongoing monitoring of fish populations. In addition, the buyback of Class A water licences is also being explored.
If we're going to use public money to buy them back, I think that the public deserves to understand the circumstances under which they were issued and what the cost is going to be to the public purse to reacquire them.
The federal government has also committed $70 million to improve the health of the Darling River to prevent further fish deaths. The funding includes $25 million to subsidise the cost of updating meters in the Northern Basin, $10 million for native fish hatcheries and $5 million for cameras to live stream river flows.
Flow that is embargoed. They can actually monitor it and make sure that it gets to where it's going. So that's a step in the right direction.
Patrick Ryan-Key, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Still to come tonight, a new kingfish farm set to open near Whyalla and bigger ships to cruise into Port Lincoln this year. Hello again. Clean Seas has begun setting up a multi-million-dollar kingfish farm near Whyalla. Rowan Ramsey toured its other site at Arno Bay this morning, getting a first-hand look at its operations.
It was choppy on the water this morning, but Clean Seas is predicting smooth sailing for its Whyalla expansion. Over the next 18 months, it'll begin setting up a kingfish farm near Point Lowly, which will feed its growing export demands.
It's going to be around $20 million with investment in the product, the equipment, the people. But within 2 years, there'll be $50–60 million worth of product alone on this site.
Mr. Head and Rowan Ramsey toured Clean Seas Arno Bay Farms to inspect what will eventually be set up. 30 jobs will be created with the potential for more if the company can reel in more customers. Mr. Head says conditions around Whyalla are perfect for this project.
So it's cold water in the winter, which our fish love, and helps them to get this firm toned flesh that makes such a successful product.
The expansion was supported by a $2.5 million federal government grant. Mr. Ramsey saying the expansion will help put the Spencer Gulf on the world stage.
It's Spencer Gulf, Hiroshima, kingfish, and that's going around the world. Spencer Gulf is being labelled just like Spencer Gulf prawn.
John Hunt, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
A Whyalla healthcare worker who mentors nursing students in Southeast Asia has been named the city's Harsco Businesswoman of the Year. Lisa Campbell started as a nurse, working her way up to her current role as a regional health director. But her passion also extends to Cambodia, where she's working with local female healthcare workers. She says it's delivering positive results.
Work that I've been doing with the women over there, they've actually taken that on board and set up their own networks, networking with other women and starting mentoring relationships.
Ms Campbell says she's also hoping to help Whyalla women achieve their goals. More tourists and bigger cruise ships, that's what's in store for Port Lincoln, according to the City Council, leaving tourism operators excited by what it means for the region.
Bigger numbers means bigger tourism. It's news the town's industry is excited to hear.
Next season we've got 13 ships and we're getting another 7,000 to 8,000 people in just because they're bigger ships.
Port Lincoln City Council holding an information session Wednesday night, reviewing the previous tourism season and outlining the next one, announcing there'll be some unique ships cruising our way.
We've got two of what they call the megaliners, that's the Golden Princess and the Sun Princess, sort of have over 2,000 passengers.
It's good news for Craig McCarthy at the Fresh Fish Place, who says the tourism season is when business is booming.
We had a fabulous summer, and what made it even better was the cruise ship season with even more ships.
The local council says it's heavily investing in upgrading the town to better cater for our travelling visitors.
The city is actually expanding in its event areas, trying to get tourists to come from interstate. And again, this is an environment tonight where we can actually discuss those matters as we go into the future.
The cruise ship season starting earlier this year with the first ship due to arrive late October. Nathan Regter, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Port Lincoln's Tunarama Festival is known as a big tourism spend for the town, and now the official numbers are in, with visitors spending $2.6 million locally during the 4-day event. This year's event was one of the biggest yet, with 20,000 people attending the wide range of events, 8,000 of those travelling to the festival from within South Australia. The SA Tourism Commission released the data this week. Year 10 students from the Eyre Peninsula have had their first experience with university education. A Flinders Uni roadshow visited Whyalla, aiming to get the teenagers thinking about their career pathways.
They've just begun Year 10, but for these EP students, their attention is now turning to life after school. Flinders University wants them considering tertiary study, visiting Whyalla to give them a taste.
We want to sort of break down myths about uni and show them how many fun and engaging courses there are out there.
Samaritan College hosted the event, with students from Port Augusta and Port Lincoln joining them. They were introduced to a number of courses, ranging from criminology to paleontology, right through to sports science.
Get them out of their seat and doing something that's really hands-on and showing them that university is not just about the books, but about all the practical things that they learn.
Teachers have welcomed the interaction between the students and the uni.
I think it's fantastic that Flinders are prepared to come up and give regional students a taste of university life. We're very grateful that they could come.
And while kids are already juggling a lot in their lives, they've left with some new ideas on post-school.
So far today I've learnt a lot.
Experience different aspects in what might be happening if we go to uni.
Showed me what each subject sort of thing does.
John Hunt, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Still to come tonight, a trip through the outback to celebrate the efforts of variety and some of the action from the Port Pirie Masters Games. Hello again. Volunteers have been rewarded for their contribution to help special needs children as part of Variety's 4-wheel drive adventure through the outback. It's part of a celebration for the children's charity, raising more than $3.5 million in 2018.
Tents, swags, gazebos and 4-wheel drives. It's your typical outback adventure, but with a special purpose at heart.
The whole idea of this week is to raise funds for special needs children in South Australia.
130 4-wheel drive enthusiasts rigging up their vehicles for the rugged 7-day trip from Parachilna to Clare as part of Variety's Prairie to the Dairy event.
The places we've been, every time you blink there's a new picture surrounding you.
However, from the growing tally of popped tyres to the battle against last Friday's wild dust storm, the trip has had its challenges.
Obviously they're 4-wheel drives, designed 4-wheel drives, but certainly we put them over a bit of countryside.
The crew's setting up camp in Saltier last night before heading home for the final stretch of their journey. In its 25th year, the 4-wheel drive adventure celebrates the efforts of entrants who've helped raise funds of over $3.5 million for children with special needs.
It's a lot of fun what these entrants do. They have a lot of enjoyment, but certainly their hearts are in the right place.
Garth Burley, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
A national torch relay has passed through Port Augusta today, but it's not what you'd expect. Travelling from Perth to the Pacific, the Paint Australia Red Book Relay aims to educate parents and bubs about the importance of reading with babies from birth. Organisers say reading is critical for the success of children.
Unless they arrive at school with the necessary skills, they may never catch up.
And we've got 20% of Australian kids arriving at school not ready for learning.
The book baton will move on to Port Pirie next before making its way to Adelaide. A Melbourne-based artist will unveil his unique exhibition in Broken Hill tomorrow night, highlighting the faces of local miners. James Price has spent more than a year working on the special project.
They're the faces of Broken Hill.
The future of the town could be anything they want, because the history of the town is anything that anyone wants it to be too. It's very diverse. There's a lot of different people who've come through here and made it a great place.
Mr Price says he drew his inspiration from the Miners' Memorial, a monument that remembers the 800 plus miners who lost their lives underground.
And I felt like that was a bit of a sad way to think about the history of a town. So what I did instead was to celebrate life, was to draw 800 pictures of people enjoying themselves in Broken Hill.
And he's done exactly that. James has covered the interior of the old Housewives Association building on Bromide Street with the faces of Broken Hill's past and present. Identities who have called the city home and helped shape its vibrancy, energy and soul. Anyone from primary school kids of 2019 to former mayors, they're all together as one.
I've got kids that I drew 12 months ago at the primary school next to kids from the primary school in the 1920s and 30s. I've got miners next to people from the footy club.
The over 800 Souls installation opens to the public tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. It's also open across the weekend between 11 and 4.
That it's very much a celebration of all of the great things that have happened and will continue to happen here, and it'll only be up for a short period of time, and that's a big part of it. It's going to be here and then gone, and like everything in culture, it keeps moving forward.
Patrick Ryankey, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
After a year's hiatus, the Port Pirie Masters Games has returned with competitors from across the state to compete on the town's sporting arenas. More than 1,000 athletes have hit the courts, pools and tracks to prove who can get the gold. Dominic Beaton has more.
It's been a massive week for sport here in Port Pirie. 1,000 competitors from across the state are participating in more than 20 events over the span of 10 days. With the AFL competition here at Memorial Oval gearing up for a big Friday of finals action. Now looking back on the week, and it was the home team taking away gold in softball. The Port Pirie Pirates putting on a damaging performance against the Adelaide District Valkyries, with local players Amanda Steff, Mel Gonsalvez and Sam Youngman proving to be best on ground. Moving on to baseball, and the Whyalla Vikings have pillaged their way to the top, winning a gold medal playoff against Mount Gambier. The Vikings kept Mount Gambier almost scoreless for 5 innings, with John Farrington finally making the scoreboard with a safe hit in the 4th. Again, the Vikings proved too strong, storming at home 7-1. In tennis, it was the battle of the ages, with Nathan Belgian, Alan Carmody, John Owens and David Bilson each winning gold in their respective age groups in the men's singles. For the women, it was Lisa Watts, Sharon Dunning, Helen Redden and Lorraine Vickers proving best on court. There is plenty more action coming your way from the Masters Games. This weekend is tipped to be a busy one, with athletics, BMX, hockey and dragon boat racing happening in and around town.
Stay with us after the break, a look at what fish are biting around the region, and we'll have the weather details with Britt. Welcome back, and time now to hear from our local tipsters about what fish are biting in local waters.
Welcome another week around the Gulf Fishing Tips from Port Pirie. Gosh, it's an exciting time to be out in the water. All the places that you'd normally look, like Eastern Shoal, around at Woods Point and all that sort of stuff, do yourself a favour this weekend and get out and have a look. You'll still probably find some yellowfin whiting in the Port Broughton area, but I've seen some beautiful catches of snapper around the place too. So don't forget to have a look around your creek areas. Some of those big, deeper water holes, you might find you one.
G'day and welcome to this week's Fishing Tips from Port Augusta, Jewel North. Well, stellar time of year leading into Easter, just a real mixed bag of fish. There's lots and lots of salmon around, down on the shacks off the beaches of all places, and also up in the creeks as well. With that, there is some kingfish starting to float around as well, around the powerhouse and also up in Port Patterson. King George whiting around, a little bit shallow up in Port Patterson and Martridge's Bank. Crabs are still everywhere at the moment, just taking a little bit of time to get in the nets. And that's all we have from the Jewel of the North.
The squid's certainly starting to move in across Whyalla with the cooler weather coming now. There's been some really good catches coming down towards Mount Young. There's also been some nice squid caught on the outside of the Whyalla Marina rock walls. Later in the afternoon towards sundown, there's been some good squid picked up there along the foreshore too. Further out on the boats, there has been a few snapper coming in. It has been very patchy, but if you work hard, I'm sure you can find some fish. The deeper waters have definitely been the target. Also around Whyalla, the blue swimmer crabs are still running at full flight.
G'day, welcome to Fishing Tips in Port Lincoln. We'll start locally in the bay, and there's still a few blue swimmer crabs around, so if you're keen for a feed of crabs before they totally move out the bay, now's your chance because they are certainly thinning out. There's been some squid caught off of the town jetty, not big squid, but numbers haven't been too bad. Over at Coffin Bay, there's been some whiting up north of Farm Beach along the Frenchman's to Gallipoli Beach stretch. And there's been a few patches of tuna out around Reef Head. They've been a bit skittish, but have been fish out there. And that's all we've got for fishing tips this week. We'll see you again with more tips next week.
And now for a look at what's happening in the weather heading into the weekend. Here's Britt.
Thanks, Casey. It's been a sunny day across the region. Port Augusta and Port Pirie both reaching 25 degrees. It got to 24 at Whyalla and Port Lincoln, 23 at Broken Hill, Adelaide 22. To the satellite, with a high-pressure system over Mount Gambier moving east, tomorrow a weak front will cross the coast. Northerly winds tending northeasterly at up to 15 knots in the Gulf, with seas at 1 metre, and the sun will rise just before 20 to 7. Another mostly sunny day tomorrow, Port Augusta looking at a top of 29, Whyalla, Corn, Broken Hill, Port Pirie and Cleve all 28, Port Lincoln, Clare and Kadina 26, Coffin Bay and Adelaide 25. And fine weather expected across the weekend, Port Lincoln with maximums in the mid-20s, Cleve a top of 25 on Saturday, Woodner sitting in the early 30s. Whyalla at 27 on Saturday, Sunday sunny and 28. Port Augusta 29 on Saturday, sunny and 32 on Sunday. Kadina with tops in the late 20s. Port Pirie sunny with a max of 30 on Sunday. Clare with maximums sitting in the late 20s. Broken Hill partly cloudy, a top of 28 on Saturday, Sunday 27. And that's all for today's weather report. Casey, back to you.
Thanks for that, Britt, and that's all your local news this Thursday evening. Thanks for joining us. I'll bring you updates later in the evening. Good night.